Okay, we're going to wrap up the logo creation in this demo. And if you remember from our example, we had a dark circle around with sort of not a light gray fill, but it's going to be lighter than this outside. Sort of a dark gray fill that's going to be a good contrast for these colors. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to need to use a vector shape. And so to create that vector shape, I'll just go ahead and create it on top of the M, and then I'll just move it. But because I have a grid, and also because I have snap turned on, and if you look at snap 2, it's going to snap to the grid, then what's going to happen is it'll automatically pinpoint the center. If I click, and as I'm holding down the mouse and do Option Shift and then start expanding, I'll get a perfect circle from the center, okay, that's drawn out from the center. And let's go ahead and we'll make this, I don't know, about that big or so. And right now it's, an orange color, but I think I want to go ahead and choose a gray. And this looks like about the right color of gray, so I'll say okay. And I can actually make sure, I think that's going to be this one. And if I want, I could double check, but that's the right color of gray, I think. And it's in front of the M, so down here in my layers panel. So all I need to do is click and drag it, and now it's behind the M. But I'd like to put a stroke around this ellipse, and to do that, I would go up here to the options panel, and I selected the little stroke icon, and then I want to make it a dark gray. I don't want to make it a pure black, but I think having it be a dark gray is probably good. And I need to make it so that it's not 3 points, but it's something more like, I don't know, let's try 50 and see what that looks like. That gray might not be dark enough. Let's see if there's a slightly darker gray, maybe that charcoal. I'm not sure if that's too dark. Let's take a look at the example. Yeah, I think that's about right. Yeah, we don't want it to be pure black, but it needs to be significant enough that it's, bold. And one of the things that we have sort of as an issue is we have the W and the M overlapping on the edge, and I think that I'd like for them to be behind. You could do it however you want, but I think that it might be nice as something that's behind. So if I duplicate this layer that is the vector shape, what I can do for this ellipse is I'm going to take my selection tool, and instead of having a fill on it, I'm going to make the fill transparent. And you can see how it changes over here in the layer panel. And now I can drag that on top of all of my vector shapes over here, and you can see that it cuts them off. Now, I think that I don't like how much it's cutting both of these letter forms off. Maybe I can make this, let's see what happens if I do this at about, I don't know, 48 pixels. That's a little bit better, but I think I need to actually make the ellipse a little bit bigger. So, but I need to do it to the top and to the bottom. So I'm going to select both of these layers so that it'll scale both. And then what I can do up here is I can come up and change the size in the options. Let's try like 490 by 490. And it sort of does something a little bit unexpected in that it makes it off center. So what you'll need to do is just kind of use your nudge tools to go and find center, or you can also just move it manually so that the anchor points in the center line up. And you can also use, I'm using the nudge tools, and then you want to make sure that these anchor points line up with your grid. Okay, and so that looks a lot better, I think. And then if we want the W and the M to sort of fit better inside, we can also select all of these pieces for the W and the M. And then what I'll need to do with my path selection tool is highlight the W and the M, and it's not going to choose anything else because those layers aren't selected. So it's a little different than Illustrator if you're accustomed to using Illustrator. And I'm going to use my nudge tool with the arrow keys and just scoot the W and the M over so that it's lined up more on the center and that we have a little bit more equality over here about where the stroke falls. And that's not too bad. And if you wanted to make the stroke just a tiny bit smaller, you can check to make sure that these ellipses are the same size, because it looks like this one is still 50 points, whereas this one is 48. So somewhere something got not selected at the same time, or I don't know. But let's make this ellipse, let's try to make it match the 48 and see if that solves our problem. And I think it does. I think that that's a pretty nice solution. Yeah, so this is going to be our logo right here. And now this is something that's going to get saved. In fact, I'll save it right now. But then it's going to be placed in as a smart object whenever we go to make the badge that also has the name down below. So let's go ahead and do that real fast. It shouldn't take us but a second. So I'm going to go ahead and first of all, let's save this logo PSD. I'm going to go and make a new file. Make sure that we've got, all right, let's do, you can say don't color manage, or you can just choose our sRGB so they match. And instead of the width being 500, 500, let's say that the badge, I like the proportions maybe of 600 by 900. So it's kind of got that thirds ratio. And we can make the background color the color that we intend for it to be. And I think it's going to be somewhere like in this range. I think that's a good dark color. And we'll go ahead and just make that background color like that. Okay. Now, this grid system's not exactly right for this particular ratio, so we'll go back up to our preferences, and if you're on Windows, go to Edit Preferences, and we're going to go to our guides, grids, and then every guideline, since it's 600 wide, let's say that every guideline is 300 pixels, and we're going to divide it by 2 subdivisions, so that should be good. And you didn't see me do it, but I just did a file save, so we saved it. I saved it as logo-badge, and I saved it in the same folder where I'm storing the logo PSD. You can take a quick peek at that. And so here it is on my desktop, and then if I look inside, I've got both of these files in here. Okay, so that's good. And the reason that it's important that they're not in all these weird scattered places is that we're going to basically link this logo PSD inside of the logo badge so that these two files are independent of each other, but well, they're not exactly independent. This file, the logo PSD, is used inside of logo badge so that if we ever make an update to the logo, it automatically updates inside of logo badge. Okay, so let's go ahead, and to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to say File, and then we're going to say Place Linked. And what this is going to do is it's going to create a smart object. And it's going to ask you, you know, kind of like where you want to place it. So I'm going to move it up until it kind of touches that top section. And if I wanted to move it up actually maybe a little bit further, that might be a good spot to have it, and somewhere in there. And if we wanted to double check, we could kind of like, by the way, I have this info box showing, and if I want to sort of click and drag, what I can do for info is I can see the height right here. It's 103 pixels, and that's about right. If I wanted to be super persnickety, I could nudge it up so it was only 100 pixels if I really was being that much of a stickler, but that's about right. Somewhere in that vicinity is good. So now I've got my badge there, and now what I want to do is go ahead and add my typography down below. And so I'll grab my type tool, and what's important here is I've got my Century Gothic bold, and I'm going to choose about a 65-point font, and hopefully that'll be about right. And I need to change the color so that I can see it better. So what I can do is I can either do it this way, or I can also go ahead and choose from the swatch. So I'll choose this sort of light color. And I'm going to just start typing. We'll type Werner, and I'll just keep them punched right together, Werner and Mitchell Design. I think that's how I had it. And then what I can also do is, right now it's on center, so if I take my move tool, and we're going to select both the logo and the type, and then I can choose this alignment center tool up here. And of course it puts everything off center, but all I've got to do is kind of hold down my shift key, nudge it over several places, and then it's not quite there yet. I think that's probably about right. And if I want to double check, I can blow up this, and there's a little trick with the type. If I take my text tool and I just put my cursor there, you can see right here where I'm kind of like circling my cursor tool or my text tool. There's an anchor point that shows the center point for the typography, and so that's pretty much dead center. And then all you'd have to decide is where you want the placement of this text vertically. And I think that that's not bad vertical placement. And so now we just need to apply the colors to the text. So I think this we want this ampersand. I believe that was going to be red. Oops, let's do this. Okay, we'll make that red, and then we'll make the word Mitchell match this orange color. Okay, and then design I think should be sort of like a white, but not a pure white. And that's not exactly, well, maybe it's in our palette. I think maybe this color. Let's see what that is. Yeah, that's about right. Let's say okay, and let's see how that looks. And that looks pretty darn good. And if we go over here and just double check, and like this is kind of what we had decided we liked, and we take a look at that, take a look at that, and that's pretty much on par, I believe, with the way we wanted it to turn out. Okay, so yeah, we're basically done with the logo and the logo badge, and then this can later be used as a smart object also. If I'm going to go ahead and save, and then we can use the logo badge as a smart object whenever we start to build this document. Okay, so that's the end of the logo creation demos.